59% of all children surveyed thought a goose was a type of fruit and cheese was made from straw.
The painkillers were recalled by manufacturers when it was discovered that they could cause violent seizures when taken in conjunction with water.
Athens tonight, where a 59-year-old woman has been taken to
hospital with a number of symptoms and fears. It's thought the disease could cause up to
millions of deaths worldwide if enough people caught it.
Our illness correspondent Ben Green has been looking at what we
might know so far.
The existence of so-called tomato flu, or NFI to give it its full acronym, was first suspected back in 2004 when a worker on a tomato farm in the Philippines complained of feeling unwell before being taken to hospital and pronounced dead. Ever since then, scientists have been trying to establish a link between the tomatoes on that particular farm and anything that might cause death. In other words, the so-called smoking tomato. Here's what we know so far. It turns out that some of the tomatoes on that farm had been fertilized using excrement imported from a pig farm in Venezuela. Tests carried out on the pigs there revealed that they'd been fed on a mixture of orange peel and the reconstituted remains of dead sheep's brains. Now, some of the sheep had been fed on grass, which in turn had been fertilized with a mixture of weed killer and specially imported liquidized turkey offal from a turkey farm in Turkey. So far, so good. But it's what happened next.
Despite having lost that arm and the hand that went with it. But for one man at least, this is one escape from certain horrific death he won't want to repeat anytime soon. Miles Anderton, IBS News, Gibsonville, Idaho.
Miles, thank you. Miles Anderton there with that truly disturbing story.
All the same, you have to figure the guy's unlucky, though, don't you? I mean, you're out walking your dog, minding your own business. You look up and see a slab of frozen urine coming right at you, right out of the sky. That's something you don't want to see.
This is something the Federal Aviation Administration's clearly going to have to take a closer look at.
Yep. You know, when you're up there in one of those things and you have to use the toilet, don't you kind of always wonder where it goes?
Well, it feels like one of those areas of modern life where the legislation is actually lagging behind where the technology
is. Does it just come right out of a hole, like a pipe at the back of the aircraft, or do they have a kind of, I don't know, some kind of giant onboard sewage tank up there?
Maybe they're going to have...
That's something you definitely don't want to know about.
Maybe they're also going to have to look at some major rerouting, which, of course, is going to have all kinds of financial and logistical implications.
See, this is the kind of thing I have absolutely no idea how it works. Then again, I don't really know how the toaster works. It's 10 after 5.
It is, and here's Alicia with the weather.
Julia, thank you.
Let's hope you got nothing worse than rain for us, Alicia. Rain I can live with. Frozen urine, it's too much.
Well, Anthony, let me tell you, if you're living in Latacunga, Ecuador right now, you've got other things on your mind than urine. If we...
Welcome to Lookout East with Phil Kirtridge and Sarah Holt.
The bong stories from all this region where you're local tonight.
A Suffolk village gets its first woman murderer. We have the reaction.
And if counting sperm's your thing, then Woodbridge is the place to be, as the Suffolk town comes out top in the new National Sperm Count League tables.
All that, plus the latest on that earthquake in Bury St Edmunds.
And as if that wasn't enough, Russ is here with the weather, aren't you, Russ?
Indeed I am, Sarah.
You haven't got any more earthquakes for us, I hope, Russ?
No, I don't think so, Phil, no.
Tell me, did you feel anything?
I can't say that I did, actually, Phil, no. I was actually out in the garden when it happened. Keep the wife happy, you know how it is.
No, tell me about it.
Doing a bit of edging, and I can honestly say I didn't feel a thing.
And what about Mrs. Russ? Did the earth move for her?
Yes, very good.
As they say, let's not go there.
Don't go there.
Honestly, boys. Now, it's one thing to lose your teeth, but quite another to have them stolen.
Further isolation tonight. The hospital is due to release a statement about
her condition, and we can cross now live to our correspondent Will Parker, who's in
Athens. Will, what more can you tell us?
Francis, yes, I'm here at the Asclepios Hospital in Athens, and what we're being told here tonight is that the head of the surgical team treating the 59-year-old woman at the center of this unfolding drama, Dr. Apostolonopoulos, will come out of that door you could see behind me, down the ramp in front of it, and then make a statement to the waiting media any moment now.
And do we know what he's likely to say in that bulletin?
Well, Francis, not at this stage, no. And indeed, it may well be that we won't know what he's going to say until he's saying it.
And Will, when you say that at the moment we don't know what he's going to say, what is it exactly that we don't know?
Well, at the moment we don't know the woman's name and we don't know the precise details of the symptoms she's suffering from. In fact, Francis, I have to say that at this stage we don't even know whether Dr. Apostolonopoulos is a man or indeed a woman.
And Will...
These are the symptoms medical experts tell us we should be on the lookout for. If you have any of these symptoms, you should contact a doctor immediately. Hot or cold sweats? Hot or cold aches? Sweaty achiness. Runny or sweaty or achy nose. Tiredness. A sense of slight confusion. Blinking. Passing water. And, of course, in extreme cases, death.
To ESN News with Katie Tate and Richard Pritchard. I'm Katie Tate. Still to come.
And I'm Richard Pritchard. Coming up.
Still to come, Charles and Camilla. Reaction from around the world as Charles insists that the hairstyle was her idea.
Tomato flu. As another suspected case of the killer super disease appears in Athens, we go live to Florida.
And Africa, we've the latest poverty.
All that still to come. But first, a reminder of everything you've heard so far.
Stay with us for that. But first, coming up next, a roundup.
Sharon Stone announces she signed up for Basic Instinct 3.
Apparently, in one controversial scene, if you look closely, you can see her varicose veins.
Meow!
IKEA exec Thord Holmstead shocks girlfriend Scarlett Johansson by announcing he's gay.
He would have come out of the closet sooner, but it took him ages to assemble.
Woof.
Woof. Coming up later, how genetically modified babies are Hollywood's latest must-have.
But first, we're joined by So News' very own scrutinizer of the stars, our man in La La Land, the wicked bitch of the West, Josh Cashman.
Outrageous! You call me bitch again and I'll scratch your eyes out and tell everyone you're crap in bed.
Nice to see you too, sweetie.
So we hear Bono's in the news.
Honey, big!
And Will, in the way that these things tend to play out, is it significant that we don't know these details?
Well, Francis, that's a very good question. It may indeed be highly significant that the Greek authorities did not release those details, particularly if when we do know them, they do indeed confirm what many people here are already reading into the fact that they haven't been released. On the other hand, the fact that we don't know those details may not be significant at all, and indeed it may be precisely because...
Athletics now, and the IOC have called for a change in the way marathons are televised in the future after an increasing number of runners have been shown urinating, defecating, vomiting and suffering heart attacks mid-race.
Golf, and in the Hyundai Classic in Florida, the American Lee Henderson was trapped in a bunker for just over 2 hours and eventually had to be lifted out with a winch before hitting his free drop into another bunker and retiring.
Polo now, and
all that coming up shortly. Now though,
With as many as 15 dead. Coming up.
appears to confirm that most men find women with large mugs of beer more attractive than women with less beer or no beer at all. The study...
Meanwhile, with Hurricane Michael expected in the Gulf of Mexico early Tuesday, we'll be tracking his movements minute by minute, mile by mile. Stay with us.
Alicia, thanks, we will.
Hurricane Michael? Who thinks up these names anyway?
I guess that would be the guys at the Meteorology Center.
If you're a hurricane, you want a bit of zing in the name, don't you? Michael sounds a bit too much like a girl's name to me. You want like a Hurricane Arnie or something. Now that's a hurricane.
It's 15 after 5.
Hurricane Brad. Hey, maybe they should name them all after movie stars. That'd be something.
It's 15 after 5.
Hey, you know what? I'm onto something here. Hurricane Clint. You know, that'd be like a slow-moving, kind of cool hurricane, but you know what's going to get you in the end.
You're watching IBS News with Julia Reagan and Anthony Markovits. It's now 16 after 5. Our top stories at this hour. Health fears have been raised about the latest exercise craze to sweep the nation.
A new report out today says that shouting, now practiced by up to 12 million people coast to coast, may actually damage your...
Bono, that's Bono, is constipated. That's constipated. It's unbelievable. The shock news was leaked today. I can't believe I just said that. I had a...
Or possibly 4 youths, all between the ages of either 15 or 16, who came from around this corner and confronted Mr. Kaplan demanding money. When Mr. Kaplan told them he had no money, one of the youths made a grab for his teeth and ran off with them up a locally known path. Mr. Kaplan emerged from the incident shaken, but brave enough to talk to me exclusively about how he felt.
I'm not happy.
The Minister announcing plans to make post-employment provision more sexy with the hope of averting the much-talked-about pensions time bomb.
Yes, Mitchell, and I am going to win the decathlon at the next Olympics. The government have been shaking these magic beans for years and no one is biting the beanstalk. This will be about as sexy as my Auntie Putrid, giving it the old heave-ho after too much chocolate mousse on top of the sardines. They, Mitchell, have got trousers coming out of their mouth and they're clutching at empty bras, aren't they?
Could mean that hospitals like this would be completely overwhelmed and might even have to let perfectly healthy patients die in a pointless attempt simply to cope with a situation which would by then already be beyond any hope of redemption. Richard Harbinger, PBS News, Central London.
Richard Harbinger there in central London. Richard, thank you.
Dick, thanks. And we can go back live now to Athens and to our correspondent Will Parker, who's
there. Will, what's the latest you can tell us?
Well, the latest here, Francis, is that we're still waiting for Dr. Apostolinopoulos, head of the surgical team treating the 59-year-old woman at the centre of this deepening crisis, to make his or her way down this ramp you can see behind me and to issue a statement.
And presumably the reason for that is that there's been a delay of some kind.
Well, I have to say that's very much the feeling here, Francis. Now, of course, delays come in many shapes and sizes, and what we don't know in this case...
We really are looking at a situation where whole swathes of the population of a country like Great Britain could simply be wiped out. The much talked about tomato time bomb. Well, that's okay, you might say, I just won't eat tomatoes. Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple, and indeed, it may already be too late. Now, that's because this much talked about group of foods, the so-called tomatoids or SCTs, are in fact already present in hundreds of other food products. Tomato ketchup, puree, tin tomatoes, tomato soups, tomato sauce for pasta, sun-dried tomatoes, certain brands of frozen custard, tomato-flavoured Alcopop.
Reminder of our top headlines still to come tonight. That's coming up.
Stay with us for that. But first, it's time for Melly with the standing news.
Richard, thank you. I'm Melanie Bellamy, and this is the Standing News. A new survey out today reveals that for the first time ever, we in Britain now spend more on borrowing money than we do on spending it. Levels of personal debt have tsunamied through the £500,000 billion watermark for the first time since levels began. Our economics correspondent Ralph Rolfe is standing in Deptford. Ralph, what's this all about?
Melanie, yes.
That the Walruses have now pulled ahead of the Wolverhampton Baboons by 3 points. Football now, and move over Wayne Rooney. That's the word on the street in Reading, at least. Rumour has it the Royals' young striker, Dean Hargrove, has been attracting attention from the likes of Messrs Mourinho and Eriksson in recent weeks. Guy Batson has been to Reading to find out why.
It's no accident that Oscar Wilde chose Reading as a place to write his famous ballad, The Ballad of Reading Jail. But more lately, that's not all that Reddingtonians have had to sing about.
Hargrove must score, does score. Hargrove, that's 4 for Dino.
Thomas Hardy may have been less than complimentary in his portrayal of Reading in his novel Jude the Obscure, but if Jude was alive today, it's odds on she'd have a picture of Dean Hargrove on her wall, and it wouldn't be obscure.
Hargrove scores! Hargrove! What a goal!
The Royals' top scorer last season with 27 goals in all competitions, rumours of an England call-up, and a girlfriend with, if we're to believe the tabloids, at least 2 of the naughtiest legs in the land. Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Hargrove. When you look back over the last 2 years of your life...
Vicious circle of debt in which the more money they owe, the more money they owe, and consequently the more money they owe.
And Ralph, what does this mean for us all as we make our weekly trip to the supermarket?
Well, Melanie, that's a very good question. Melanie.
Ralph, thank you.
Ralph Rolfe there. 53-year-old Jeffrey Borman, a high school janitor, was coming out of his local pizza restaurant when he failed to notice a banana peel on the sidewalk, which had been discarded by a careless banana eater. According to eyewitnesses, the 53-year-old high school janitor with a history of heart trouble slipped and fell over, but then found the whole incident so funny that he had a heart attack and literally died laughing.
Julia, you have to feel sorry for that guy.
It raises all kinds of questions about who's at fault there.
Right, but also you got to think, you know, if I could choose, I mean, it's not a bad way to go. You just had a pizza, maybe a little ice cream to follow, you're feeling pretty good about the world, and whoop, look out for that banana peel, and that's it. Hey, I say, way to go, fella.
You're watching IBS News with Julia Reagan and Anthony Markovitz.
You ever think about the perfect way to die? Get to be my age, why, it's coming at you.
It's 20 after 5.
Sure beats being hit by a ton of frozen urine out of nowhere, that's for sure.
To Los Angeles now, and more dramatic developments today in the Peter Vicente murder trial. And as ever, Lauren Peterson's in Los Angeles for IBS News. Lauren, quite a day.
Julia, quite a day indeed. The Norfolk police said it was likely that the teeth were stolen to order and were probably already on their way to Europe, where they would be melted down and sold for quantities of drugs in exchange for money. Whatever the case, one thing's for sure. In Swaffham tonight, this is Penny Watson for Lookout East.
Penny Watson there in Swaffham. Extraordinary story.
Terrible.
Makes you wonder how these people sleep with themselves at night.
Almost makes you wonder what's the point of having your own teeth if someone's just going to come along and run off with them.
Yeah, and in Swaffham of all places, lovely old town, Swaffham. You know Swaffham, don't you, Russ?
Indeed I do, Phil. It's one of my old stamping grounds as a lad.
Yeah, I bet it was, and I bet you did your fair share of stamping there.
I'm saying nothing, Phil.
Fair enough.
As they say, let's not go there.
Best not.
Don't go there.
More from Russ later.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Russ. Now, there was a time when nobody really thought much about sperm.
Certainly be nothing to write home about, unless you're someone who likes writing about drizzle.
Or for a while, until this next band of cloud and rain arrives, bringing with it cloudy, rainy conditions.
Brightness for a while before more rain arrives, bringing with it further rain.
Very much a waiting game now, Francis, although exactly what the rules of that game are, who's playing it and where the missing pieces are, it's impossible to...
Now, as we were hearing from Richard and Katie earlier, the world is bracing itself tonight for a possible outbreak of tomato flu. But just how serious is the situation? And in the midst of all the panic, where do we go for the true perspective? Now, as you know, our reporter Nick Burnham is our correspondent in space, embedded with the current shuttle crew on the International Space Station. Nick, I suppose you must be one of the few people not overly troubled by news of the tomato flu.
Well, Melanie, you might well think that. In fact, that's very much what I thought. But I was wrong, and you are too. There's a lot of concern up here because NASA have drawn our attention to the fact that a lot of the freeze-dried nutrients that we sustain ourselves on do, in fact, contain tomatoids. In effect, we've been told that we can't eat well over a third of the supplies on board, and that is very much a cause for concern, especially since we've already eaten half of them.
And Nick, what's your sense there in space?
Police! We're about to watch Bono disappear up his own backside. Literally.
Liking that. So are you saying you don't think this is a big story?
No, it's huge! This is a huge story! Are you crazy? It's all anyone here is talking about. It's everywhere. I was having breakfast at the Ivy this morning with Brad Pitt. Get me. And yes, I have a fabulous lifestyle you can only dream about. And he was...
I'm Anita Drachatani, and this is 15 Seconds. The headlines are sour. At home, a car, that's right, a car gets stuck up a tree in Basildon. In international news, Israel threatens. And sport, 2 new world records. That's it for now. More later.
Accused of both drowning and electrocuting his then-wife, the actress Sierra Nevada, by wiring the jacuzzi in their spectacular Mulholland Drive mansion to a nearby overhead.
Took a very negative view of our prospects, saying that an outbreak up here could be disastrous. Another had a more upbeat response, pointing out that at least we are very easy to quarantine. It's a waiting game. But then these guys know all about waiting. As one of my crewmates likes to say, you'll never wait less in space. Just his little joke. Let's hope it's not gallows humour.
And Nick, how would you describe the mood on board at the moment?
In a word, dire. Melanie.
Nick, thank you. Nick Burnham there in space. Katie.
Melanie, thank you. Melanie Bellamy there with the standing news. Coming up.
Still to come, you're watching.
A report out today suggests that British
children are now top of the league of stupid children in Europe when it comes to
reading and writing. The report, compiled by the European Commission for Childhood Stupidity, found that
British children have now outstripped all their continental peers when it comes to being
left behind. Our education correspondent, Paula Kay,
has this report.
A normal classroom in a typical school day, with bent pupils leaning carefully over their studious books.
The ECCS report found that out of every 7 British children, there were another 4 who couldn't write their own name, even on a piece of paper. And out of those which could, a further half couldn't read what they'd written once they'd written it. In one instant, for example, most children could neither spell the words handwriting or correctly. But how have these state of affairs come about? Whom are we to blame? And above all, what can be done about them? Here at this school in Birmingham.
So that accident eastbound between junctions 17 and 18 on the A12 has now finished. OK, and out onto the roads now. This is the A41, just coming to the Bishop's Interchange. As you can see, pretty good at the moment, traffic flowing pretty normally. The A23, Minger Lane Slip Road now. Again, pretty good really. Couple of buses there, but otherwise traffic flowing quite well. The A312, Bigot's Foot. Again, as you can see, really quite a normal amount of traffic in both directions there. Very few buses.
To make Woodbridge man top of the National Sperm Count League table.
So how do you feel to be one of the most potent men in the country?
Well, apparently they come out at an average speed of 76 miles an hour, which, the way I look at it, that kind of speed, you're bound to hit something.
I had this idea, right? I was going to get a T-shirt printed.
And what would it say on it?
That's it, innit? I don't know.
Throughout all this, Mr. Vincenti, as will be no surprise, sat tight-lipped, staring straight ahead with his eyes. This is Lauren Peterson for IBS News, Los Angeles.
Lauren, thank you.
Julia, you got to say that trial has everything. I can't get over that guy is only 5'4".
I guess if nothing else, it tells you that even the rich and famous don't necessarily lead happy lives. It's 5:35.
I don't know, it sounds like they all had a pretty good time to me. Maybe what it's telling you is if you're rich and famous, it's great until you murder your wife. And you got trouble.
Worldwide weather-wide update now with Alicia.
Julia, thank you.
Putting Jenson Button in pole position, although actual pole position is occupied by Juan Pablo Montoya.
What I can tell you, Francis, is that a few moments ago a woman wearing glasses went in through that door you could just see behind me. But so far she hasn't come back out. Now, who that woman was, where she was going, or why she was wearing glasses, we just can't say at this.
A205 Tesco Flyander, looking okay. A16 Shepherd's Hump, yep, fine. A312 Bigot's Foot, we've had that already. It's still looking okay though. A
whole herd of celebs stampeding to tell us about their piles, hemorrhoids, cystitis. It's so tacky.
I'm afraid we're going to have to love you and leave you. Before you go, any final thoughts?
Well, you know, we've had some fun with this story, but there's a serious side to it. We tend to imagine celebrities as a race of godlike super beings whose lives are nothing like ours. So a lot of celebrities here are saying to me, this is a great story for them. It reminds people that they're human too and that they have the same problems as the rest of us. And now maybe people like us will treat them with more compassion and understanding.
It's not going to happen though, is it?
Are you kidding? No chance!
Josh Cashman, thank you.
Missing you already, Claudia.
Loving you madly. Now, we all know Mariah Carey drinks elephant.
James Flint for Lookout East, Beccles.
James Flint with that report from Beccles. Interesting story. Sign of the times.
Yeah, it certainly is. Then again, if you're going to have women judges, you've got to have women murderers for them to sentence.
Well, yes.
It's only fair. Where do you stand on the equality of the sexes, Russ?
Well, of course, I'm old enough to remember when you really didn't see that many women.
Oh, yes, the old days, eh? You had to know where to look for them.
Well, of course, I wouldn't know anything about that.
No, of course not.
Moving on, moving on.
So, a bit warmer today, Russ. What sort of a weekend have you got for us?
Yes, indeed, Sarah. Not too bad at all today. A little bit breezy up round the...
Before this next weather system out here to the west comes walloping and bringing with it more weather together with...
So, if you are thinking about going out into the outside today, it might be worth taking a car with you just in case.
Another option is the mass issuing of paper masks.
All that coming up later on Film and Movie News. But we open this week's show with slutty behaviour. That's the provocative title of the new Todd Donner film starring July Sharon. It's billed as an unflinching and erotic look at the dark side of love and desire and opens across the UK this weekend. I caught up with Miss Sharon when she flew into London for its West End premiere.
July, can I just say what a pleasure it is to be in a room with you. Having spent so much time drooling over you in cinemas, magazines and on posters, it's an absolute delight to discover that you're even more beautiful in person.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I'll try not to drool over you here, but I can't make any promises.
Well, good luck.
And I apologise in advance if my eyes suddenly pop out on stalks like they do in cartoons, or if anything else pops out for that matter.
Okay.
It's just scaremongering, says Kate. In London, the media are full of these scare stories. If it's not tomatoes that are bad for you, it's bread or water or Ebola. It's just silly.
Killer tomatoes, asks Becky in Handsworth. Whatever next? Broccoli?
That's about all we've got time for on the money side. If we could just sum up the mood on the markets where you are. In a word, Tom.
Brisk.
Michelle.
Sluggish.
Kyoko.
Bullish.
Katrina.
Chintzy.
Johan.
Jazz.
Francis Xavier.
Pornographic.
Todd.
Caboodle.
Brett.
No, thanks.
Unanswered as the seconds tick away here behind me.
Without wishing to speculate, of course, Will, what's your sense of what some people are saying there in Athens tonight about what could be unfolding in that hospital?
Well, of course, the Greeks are a pretty phlegmatic lot at times like this, Francis. I spoke to one old man earlier in a cafe who didn't even bother to reply to me.
You managed to light up the screen in all your films, and as I say, I'm a huge fan of your body of work, and what a body it is.
Oh no, we're all going to die. I'm so scared, and I've been on antidepressants for 6 weeks, and I'm thinking about ending it all. That's from Bubbles in London.
Marks and Spencer's underwear is still all right. That's from Sam in Essex. I think that's in relation to our earlier business report.
These people think they can play God, but they can't. Only God can play God, if there is one. Very deep point there. That's from Z-Man.
When are we going to...
That's probably the A417 somewhere. A10, Cottager's Dip. Don't know where that is. Or that.
I'd be happy to see a film which was just the camera looking at you for 2 hours. That wouldn't be boring. That would be just great for me. You wouldn't be able to get me out of the cinema. I'd be glued to my seat, literally. They'd have to call you in to get me to stop looking at you. But even then, I'd still be stuck to my seat. You'd have to pull me off.
Well, I can't promise that.
Ah, shame. Now, your new film, Slutty Behaviour.
CBI's latest report showing that as working from home increases, so productivity has fallen.
Well, roll me in bubble wrap and call me a parcel. Who'd have thunk it? People working from home, not actually working from home? Any chimp worth their chutney could have told you that, Mitchell. We all know what happens when people say they're working from home. They're in the garden ramming a huge Cornish pasty down their neck, or they're down the boozer sinking a yeasty gargle. If they are on a PC, they're sitting in their pants playing Minesweeper or checking out the Swiss noughties. Surely this is a case of a memo not worth the post-it it's written on.
Well, I think that's beautiful, sassy, sexy, funny, charming, stylish, gorgeous, brilliant, jaw-dropping. Did I mention sexy?
I think you did.
Okay. Can I say it again? Sexy, 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 sexy.
This will only affect boys, points out Claire in Coventry. Boys get the flu, girls get cold, so it stands to reason that only boys will die.
Some thick trousers, a flask of tea and some really stout sandwiches with you if you are thinking of
air quality between 2 and 3 with the squinting index up around 5 or even 6 by the...
Not a great day, I'm afraid, for the Owling Championships up there in Cumbria.
And indeed, it's never over until the fat lady sings. But of course, in this case, we still don't know whether Dr. Apostopoulos is indeed a lady, and if she is a lady, whether or not she is fat. I certainly think it's unlikely she's going to sing.
That at just 9 years old, David McIntosh could become Britain's youngest ever mum. In a statement...
Catholic priests involved in illegally downloading inappropriate music from the internet.
July Sharon, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure and a personal highlight of my life. You've made me the happiest man on the planet. Thank you.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah. July Sharon there. Quite probably the most delightful and glorious woman on earth. Talented with it. Makes you sick. As does her new film, Slutty Behaviour. In it, Sharon is meant to be a siren beauty and irresistible. But her performance has all the allure of a scabies-ridden tramp who's eaten one of his legs off and then puked it into your face. By the end of the movie, I found her so unattractive, I'd rather have ogled my own gran, and she's dead and very decomposed. It's all about as erotic as watching fat, hairy old men with pendulous breasts and broken teeth wrestling naked in a fishmonger's. Slutty behaviour.
President Bush has spoken.
Victoria Beckham has revealed.
The Prime Minister said.
Osama bin Laden has issued.
Prince Charles has made.
Ozzy Osbourne has failed.
Developing the disease yourself whilst in total isolation.
Take lots of vitamins, that's my advice. Jed
Yes, indeed, Francis, there is indeed something happening here. Yes, this looks very much like the announcement we've been promised. This is it, I think. Here he comes now, just coming, as you can see, out onto the ramp here, behind me here. So at least we now know that he is a he. So this then, at last, is Dr. Apostopoulos.
Now we seem to have lost Will Parker there in Athens for the moment. Yes, we have lost him. Obviously, we'll go back to Athens as soon as we can. In the meantime, other news.